You were not born to be agreeable. You were trained to be. From the moment you could speak, you were rewarded for compliance. Be nice. Don't upset people. Be easy to get along with. And so, without realizing it, you learned a dangerous equation, that your worth is measured by how little resistance you create. But here is the truth most people never confront. Niceness, when it becomes a reflex, is not virtue. It is surrender. The world does not respect those who constantly yield. It consumes them. Look carefully. The person who is always available, always agreeable, always understanding, what do they receive in return? Not admiration, not loyalty. They receive expectation, entitlement, disregard. Because when you make yourself endlessly accessible, you quietly teach others that your time, your boundaries, your dignity are negotiable. And once something is negotiable, it is no longer respected. Stoic philosophy understood this long before modern self-help diluted it into soft comfort. The Stoics did not preach kindness at the expense of strength. They taught discipline, control, and above all, self-respect. To command respect, you must first stop begging for approval. This is where most people fail. They believe respect is granted by others as if it were a gift. It is not. Respect is enforced through consistency, through boundaries, through the quiet but unmistakable signal that you are not to be handled carelessly. And that signal begins the moment you stop being nice in the way you've been conditioned to be. Understand this clearly. Being good is not the same as being agreeable. A good person acts according to principles. An agreeable person acts according to pressure. One is rooted in strength, the other in fear. If you hesitate to say no because you fear disapproval, you are not being kind. You are negotiating your integrity. If you tolerate disrespect to keep the peace, you are not being mature. You are teaching others how little it costs to diminish you. Peace without respect is not peace. It is quiet humiliation. The Stoics would ask you a simple question. What is within your control? Not the opinions of others, not their moods, not their reactions. Only your actions, your standards, your response. So why then do you shape your behavior around things you cannot control while neglecting the one thing you can, yourself? You say yes when you mean no. You smile when you feel resentment. You remain silent when you should speak. And in doing so, you fracture your own identity. Because every time you betray your own judgment to maintain comfort, you weaken your authority, not in the eyes of others, but in your own mind. And once you lose authority over yourself, others will sense it, instinctively. Respect is not negotiated through words. It is detected through behavior. Consider this. The individual who speaks less, but means every word, carries more weight than the one who fills silence with empty agreement. The one who sets limits calmly, without apology, is far more respected than the one who explains themselves endlessly in search of understanding. Explanation invites negotiation. Certainty ends it. You do not need to justify every boundary. You need to enforce it. This is where the Machiavellian edge emerges. Not cruelty, not malice, but strategic restraint. The understanding that perception matters, that how you present yourself determines how you are treated. If you appear easily manipulated, you will be manipulated. If you appear firm, composed, and unwilling to bend without reason, people adjust accordingly. Human behavior is adaptive. People test limits. Consciously or not, they observe how far they can go. So the question becomes, what have you been allowing? Every ignored boundary becomes a precedent. Every tolerated slight becomes permission. You are not disrespected once. You are disrespected repeatedly because the first instance was left unanswered. Stoicism teaches emotional control, not emotional suppression. There is a difference. You do not explode at every offense. You do not react impulsively, but you do respond deliberately. You address what must be addressed without drama, without hesitation. Calm does not mean passive. In fact, the most powerful form of dominance is calm clarity. Imagine someone crosses a line. The average person either avoids confrontation or reacts emotionally. Both outcomes signal weakness, either fear or lack of control. But the Stoic response is different, measured, direct, unapologetic. That doesn't work for me. No anger, no explanation, no negotiation. And then, silence. Silence, when used correctly, is authority. It forces the other person to confront the boundary you've drawn. It removes the chaos of over-explanation. It communicates something deeper than words, that you are not seeking approval for your stance. This is where respect begins to form, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated that you require it. Now understand something critical. When you change in this way, not everyone will respond positively. Some will resist. Some will accuse you of becoming cold, distant, or different. They are correct. You are different. You are no longer playing the role they were comfortable with. And that discomfort reveals something important. Many relationships are built not on mutual respect, but on convenience, on the predictability of your compliance. When that compliance disappears, so does the illusion. This is not loss. This is clarity. The Stoics never feared losing what was never truly aligned. They understood that attachment to external validation is a liability. If someone values you only when you are agreeable, they do not value you. They value your usefulness. And usefulness without respect is exploitation. So you must decide, do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? Because in many cases, you cannot have both. Respect often requires disappointing people. It requires saying no without cushioning it in excessive politeness. It requires holding your ground when it would be easier to yield. And here is the paradox. The more comfortable you become with being misunderstood, the more clearly others begin to understand you. Because you are no longer distorting yourself to fit their expectations. You are consistent, predictable in principle, not in submission, and consistency is power. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be respected than to be loved if you cannot be both. Because love, when rooted in convenience, is fragile. It shifts with emotion, with circumstance. Respect, however, is grounded in perception of strength. And strength, once established, is not easily challenged. This does not mean becoming ruthless or devoid of empathy. It means becoming selective. You give kindness where it is deserved. You give time where it is valued. You give energy where it is reciprocated. But you do not give endlessly, because what is given without limit is rarely appreciated. Scarcity creates value. This applies not only to resources, but to your presence. If you are always available, your absence means nothing. If you are always agreeable, your opinion carries no weight. If you are always accommodating, your refusal has no impact. But when you become intentional, when your time, your words, your attention are measured, everything changes. People listen more closely. They consider your responses more carefully. They recognize that access to you is not guaranteed. And in that recognition, respect is born. So how do you begin? You start small, but you start immediately. The next time you are asked to do something you do not want to do, pause, not to calculate how to avoid discomfort, but to assess what you actually want. And if the answer is no, say it, clearly, briefly, without apology. I won't be able to. Not, I'm sorry, I wish I could. Maybe next time, I just feel bad. No. Every unnecessary word weakens the boundary. You are not rejecting the person. You are asserting your limit. And those who respect you will accept it. Those who do not reveal themselves. This is how you filter your environment, not by chasing better people, but by becoming someone who no longer tolerates the wrong ones. Over time, something subtle but profound will shift. You will feel less resentment, less internal conflict, because your actions will begin to align with your values, and alignment creates confidence, not the loud performative kind, but the quiet certainty that does not need validation. You will speak less, but mean more. You will give less, but with greater intention. You will engage less in trivial conflict, but address what truly matters. And people will notice, not because you demanded their attention, but because you stopped competing for it. This is the essence of Stoic power. Not domination through force, but through control of self. Not manipulation through deceit, but through clarity of boundaries. Not emotional detachment, but emotional discipline. You become difficult to exploit, not because you are aggressive, but because you are no longer accessible in the ways that invite exploitation. And that is where respect solidifies. Because in a world driven by impulse, by validation seeking, by constant negotiation of identity, you become something rare, unmoved, intentional, principled, and rarity commands attention. So stop trying to be liked by everyone. Stop softening your words to avoid tens. If you've learned something from today's Stoic lesson, subscribe to the channel so that you can keep building the discipline that transforms you. Send this to those who refuse mediocrity, because truth this sharp is wasted on those who choose comfort over control. Thank you.